It is a grim and dark day in New York City today. Welcome to Diskogs Presents. First of all, I'd like to say I had my first day of work today at my new job as a paralegal. It was a really busy day at the office. Obviously, I just started, so I didn't really know what was going on. I mostly just, milled around a bit. I have a desk I share with a guy named Mortimer, and he's like an old guy. He's really cool. He's a big Doors fan, so I was telling him a bit about last week's episode on the Doors. He actually had some crazy news. There's actually a new documentary. There is evidence that Jim Morrison is not part of the 27 Club. He actually faked his death and is living upstate in Syracuse as a maintenance man named Frank. Even more exciting, though, is Mortimer is from Syracuse, and he actually knows Frank. He knows Jim Morrison. Isn't that cool? He's heard a lot of crazy stories. I can't wait to talk more to Mortimer about this, because this is some really exciting insider information, I think. Anyway, end of a long day. I come back home to record another episode of Diskogs Presents, and it's a very exciting episode today. We actually have an album request from a Roy Hara in San Diego, California. He requested we review the new Panda Bear album named Sinister Grift. Came out just a few weeks ago at the end of February. We've both been listening to it a lot, right? And Christian we're kind of going for like an animal theme today. So we have Panda Bear, and then we have
the Dodos. It's not just animal theme, but it's also kind of 2000s indie heyday theme as well.
And not just animals, it's like pandas are endangered, dodos are extinct. So it's like rare animals.
The name of the album is Beware of the Maniacs. I should have said that.
All right, so let's get right into it. Panda Bear, Sinister Grift. A lot of you probably, if you've heard of Panda Bear, probably know him from Animal Collective, another electronic animal-based band. I like Animal Collective, Merryweather Post Pavilion, and Strawberry Jam, Sung Tongs. After listening to this album, to be honest, it really just sounds like an Animal Collective album. Real catchy pop tunes with interesting music. Yeah. What are your initial thoughts, Christian?
This album is very pleasant to listen to. It almost feels pointless to bring up any similarity to Brian Wilson. We've known for decades now the Animal Collective dudes are big Beach Boys heads. Listening to this, it's not even just the way the songs are structured and written, but like his voice, it almost sounds like he wants to sound as much like Brian Wilson as possible. I've been seeing some of these interviews with him. He's got a similar kind of bowl cut going on.
I don't know what Panda Bear looks like, but you were just talking about his voice, which I will say is a huge part of this album. He sings a lot. If you like kind of saccharine, sweet vocals that go from 0 to 100 with nothing in between, I would say this is your favorite album. Despite being such lovely pop music, his voice is kind of too intense in a way.
You're right to say that the vocals are intense. Clearly, the way the album is mixed and produced, the vocal harmonies are meant to be the focal point, and they often come in these like big, bright chunks, sort of isolated from all the other sounds on the album. For me, the effect is usually quite nice. I really like the first two tracks on this album. The first one called Praise and the second one called Anywhere But Here. They're pop songs with not super complicated harmonies, but they're doing, I think, some interesting little subtle things. The first song has that chorus that goes, and again, and again. Super straightforward, repetitive. It's a dance moment. For me, that moment wouldn't work at all if it weren't preceded by the verses, which all the lines of vocals have varying lengths. There's never a consistent... Hold on.
The second song was the the 1 2 3 1 2 3 song, right? With that kind of time signature and the Spanish woman voice.
I do think there is a Spanish woman voice, which I honestly didn't even notice. I want to make this point about the first song. You can't have the loose dance party vibe unless you've been staggering about in this land of uncertain asymmetry. And that's what that first song does. The subsequent tracks, there isn't enough asymmetry. It's too smooth. Tracks 3 through 6, just smooth pop sailing without much variation to break it up at all. Some of the guitar sounds stand out to me because they're amid so much electric stuff. And I noticed a lot of the hand sliding up and down an electric guitar fretboard, you know, those little like squeaks that come from a guitar.
Joni Mitchell influence there with the finger sounds. I like that. I didn't notice that on this album, but I'm sure it's there. I really liked the last song with Cindy Lee. I don't remember the name, but it was very good.
Defense, there
you go. A good closing track to an album. The rest is kind of an attack, and then it ends on the defense, curling up into a ball that you can throw, but it's going to bounce right back. Isn't that right?
I do think that's right. When you listen to this album, did it bring to mind any other groups? Because it brought really strongly to mind another group that I haven't mentioned yet, a group maybe from the mid-2000s. This record sounds kind of like Vampire Weekend. And if that sounds a little bit like a criticism, I think it kind of is. You know, I'm not a hater of Vampire Weekend. I respect what they do. But to be churning out Vampire Weekend sound-alike tracks in 2025, I mean, he's a grown man.
I've never even heard Vampire Weekend. That's why maybe I didn't make that comparison. I don't know what they sound like at all. I did just have... Oh, I wanted to talk about the album cover. It's a painting, and it's not that good of a painting. There's something kind of off about it. Also very reminiscent of Alex G covers. I wasn't too into it. I think it's kind of interesting, but I probably wouldn't want this on vinyl, because I don't like the cover too much.
Yeah, this album, it's best when there's something weird about it. He can write a lush grouping of chords, but some of these songs, they just move ahead in 4/4 time, being sunny and laid back, and I just don't fucking care. I mean, if you put it on at a party, I'd be perfectly happy, but it's good, but it's not interesting. Doesn't that bother you?
It doesn't bother me. He can do what he wants. I think this was a nice album. I do agree when it's a bit weird and more interesting, it is more interesting. That is true. I probably won't be revisiting this that much, but I would give it an 8 out of 10.
I'm going to give it a 6.3 out of 10.
All right, and let's move right ahead.
This album, Beware of the Maniacs by the Dodos, is something that I really, really, really loved when I was about 14 years old. And it feels good to get back into the stuff that you liked when you were 14. I was also listening to a lot of Strawberry Jam by Animal Collective, and I was listening to the Dodos. This album and their second album, Visitor, are some really nifty things, but today we're just going to talk about Beware of the Maniacs, their debut. It's a pretty ambitious debut, if you ask me. It's two dudes, one guy who plays guitar and writes songs and sings in a soft indie style, and the other guy who plays the drums. He plays quite aggressive, sometimes almost tribal sounding, inspired. It's not crazy, it's not experimental, but it's just different enough to take these straightforward indie folkish songs and just give them that little edge that makes them sing. Without the drums, the Dodos would probably be a shell of themselves, even though I do think that Merrick, whatever his name is, writes really great songs, and a lot of them are here on this album. The first song, Trades and Tariffs, is over 5 minutes long, and frankly, it's pretty boring. The melody is not that interesting. Second song, Neighbors, the songwriting starts getting a little stronger. There's more of a narrative in it. The melody's good. We're getting somewhere. The third track, Men. That's where it all happens. You've got this really beautiful la 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 la, I am a boy. You think you know where you are, but all of a sudden, those drums come in. Boom, boom, boom. irritable, and you are completely disorientated. That's the Dodos. That's the mission statement in that song right there. Compared to the Panda Bear album, where everything's smooth sailing, there's tons of variety. Soft, introspective tracks that tell very personal stories about anxieties and aspirations, old age, intricate, ornate finger picking. You've got a song like Chickens. The vocals just go wild all over the place, and the picking is at a breakneck speed. So energetic. Oh, I love that song, Chickens. If you take away trades and tariffs and horny hippies, this is a great album, but I've gone on too long. I'll let Jerry speak on it for a minute.
I listened to it a couple times. I didn't really like it. Makes sense that you liked it when you were 14, 2008, 2009, so that's around when like Juno came out. And I gotta say, this album had a real Juno sound. I can totally see it being on fan playlists for alternate soundtracks for that film. I feel like the singer suffers from the American accent singing syndrome that so many artists do suffer from, like Green Day. The voice is just so American. I don't like it. I do agree it was a bit long, even though it's only 11 songs, right? Yeah, not too many songs, but I prefer if it's a lo-fi kind of ordeal to have shorter songs. And you can have plenty of them. Make it 15, but make them half as long.
I think that is a syndrome that affects young songwriters. Having the confidence to just cut your song off and be like, it's done. The Dodos weren't quite ready for that at this stage.
Yeah, that's quite apparent. Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say about it. Didn't really like it. Didn't like the sound of it.
For me, it's just the songwriting. The melodies on this album are really something to behold. You gotta divorce your brain from the gloss, the cultural gloss over an album of music, and you have to look at the structure. The melody...
Yeah, I was actually really surprised you liked this as well, because it is so poppy. I think that is why it makes sense that you liked it when you in your younger days before you were pretentious for that kind of thing. If you like the sound of what we've described, check it out. Otherwise, I would say check out the Moldy Peaches. I think they only have one album, and that's pretty good. Got a lot of great short songs, and they're actually in Juno. So yeah, the Moldy Peaches are great. I would give the Dodos, for me personally, I would give them like a 3 out of 10. I'm not going to be listening to them anytime soon.
I really like this album. I give it an 8 out of 10.
All right, so that was Diskogs Presents, episode 8. Thank you for hanging in with us. If anyone does have requests for albums to review, please do send them our way. We do read all of the comments. We do accept submissions. So thank you very much, and see you next week.